Hola, I'm Dr. Sahila. Namaskar, hola. So I am an internal medicine trained doctor in USA, in New Jersey, and a lot of my training of yoga comes from India back home. So I'm going to share my experiences of what I call as wholesome medicine. So wholesome medicine is incorporating all the aspects of health, including the ancient yoga and the modern medicine. So it's like a fusion medicine. So let me explain to you how I look at health. So this is a very unique way of appreciating and understanding. So there are four types of health that I teach and practice, which is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So the physical health, all of us are aware of it. You know, when we fall down or when we are having a blood pressure problem, when we have a COVID problem, or we have a fracture, we go to the doctor. So that's a physical health problem that all of us are aware of. And modern medicine caters 90% of the physical health problems today, right? Mental health problems are anxiety, depression, unable to sleep, things like that, which we call insomnia. So those are psychological problems, which we would say about 10 to 20% the modern medicine is able to help. But a large majority of it is more complex, and it gets referred to subspecializations like a neurologist, a psychologist, a therapist, an acupuncturist, and so on and so forth. Then we have the emotional health. Now, the emotional health is the most toughest part of it, where people are finding it hard to cope up with. So, what is emotional health? So, people come to me saying, I don't like my job. Or they say, my mother in law lives with me and I don't know how to handle this. Or they might say, I just broke up with my boyfriend and I cannot handle this. So these are emotional problems. And sometimes these can be very hard to cope up and they can lead to other health problems. Now, the fourth one is the spiritual health, which a lot of us are not focusing. And that is where I wanted to emphasize by this class. So spiritual health is when, there will be a particular phase in everybody's life where you grow out or you move out to a college, move to a new place or a new society. There will be one part of your life where you feel lonely, and everybody goes through that phase. When we go through this loneliness, who do we have to fall back to? Or what are our instincts? Or what are our faith and beliefs? That is the spiritual health. So it's a very toughest and a very crucial part. And if we understand this, then we can overcome all of the hurdles in life. Now, why should we know all these four aspects of health? I'll tell you why. So, all these four aspects are interconnected, right? What I look at is spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. So, physical is the last step of the entire process. So, the illness starts from the spiritual health, then it can become an emotional or a mental problem, and then it becomes a physical problem. So when does the patient come to the doctor? When it is a physical problem, when they have a back pain, my blood pressure is high, I'm not able to sleep, or I snore a lot, things like this. So all these problems, you see how they are so interconnected. So the last equation is the physical health, and most of us are focusing on the physical aspect of the health, but we are ignoring the other three aspects. If we have a control of our spiritual, our mental, and emotional health, then achieving the physical health becomes a lot more easier. When I say a lot more easier, what does it mean? It will avoid you future trips to multiple doctors as you get older. So I have been in modern medicine treating patients. I've dealt with a lot of sicknesses, a lot of patients. My own parents, my father died from complicated illnesses with dialysis, end-stage renal disease. My mother is still alive, but she's wheelchair bound and she has brain cancer. So I have been dealing with my parents and other patients for a long time, and I have seen how these illnesses occur and what triggers first and how it molds and how it shapes into a new illness. So the only way to prevent illness, so even this is the preventing illness itself is something, a very novel concept of modern medicine, because what I learned throughout my MD training or MBBS in India was focused on treatment only. Like, for example, what causes cancer? How can we prevent cancer? So these things were not taught in the medical school, and I learned it much later now by adopting yoga. And cancer is a disease of the mind, and this is what has been written in the yoga books about thousands of years ago. That but we were now modern medicine is slowly trying to adapt and trying to research into that. I know a lot of you might be thinking, what about COVID? So even with COVID, a lot of research is happening. The latest research that is happening is in Beth Israel Medical Center in New York City, where they are experimenting a study population of yogis from Sadhguruji's ashram in India and normal New York City population. And they're trying to compare to see if the yogis respond differently to the COVID virus. The results are not out yet. It's going to be a very long multi-phasic trial. But Sadhguruji, who is conducting this trial, is hoping that the results will be favorable for the yogic population. So what is wholesome yoga, and why is that different from a little different from the yoga that other yogic practitioners teach? So in wholesome yoga, what I practice or teach is I consider the whole body as one entity, wholesome. So if you look at modern medicine today, the entire body is divided into compartments. So I call it compartmental medicine, right? If you have a heart problem, you go to the cardiologist. If you have a brain problem, you go to a neurologist. If you have diabetes, you go to the endocrinologist. And even among those specializations, you have so many subspecializations, right? So you are at the end, at some point, you will notice that you are visiting 10 or 12 different doctors. And that's what happens in the modern medicine today, because it's hard for all the one doctor to understand all the four aspects of your health. But there's one person who understands all the four aspects of your health. And who is that? That can be you. So each one of us, if we decide to spend a little time in understanding our body, what is going on in our system, what is going on in our mind, that is what I teach in wholesome meditation, what's going on in our body, and we practice that every day. The doctor cannot do the yoga for you, right? So you have to practice that every day. And this is what I teach in wholesome yoga and meditation. So I treat the whole body as a entity, and I aim at raising the level of consciousness. So a lot of people, they think that yoga is about renouncing something, renouncing your happiness, renouncing your wealth. No, yoga is about resetting your goals, and it's about redefining your wellness. Because as we see, even with the current COVID situation, We don't know if the vaccine is effective against all the strains. We don't know if the patient is having a reaction to the vaccine. We don't know if there is going to be a more virulent strain in future, and most likely all of us need to take another shot every year. So there are so many uncertainties even with the COVID situations. So the best thing that we can do is prepare ourselves strong enough to face all kinds of illnesses, whether it's physical or mental or emotional or a spiritual problem. And what I adopt in this, I teach 3 days a week. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's an hour session. And I have the 7-step process that I adopted, starting with prayer and then Surya Namaskar. And then we do special asanas, which are various types of props, like using the blocks, using the weights, using chair, using a trapeze, using elastic bands, step up stools, so many different props. And then we have the regular asanas. Then fifth one is pranayama or face yoga. So pranayama is a breathing techniques, and face yoga is how to prevent your face from sagging or having wrinkles. As you can see, I am 43 years old, a mother of 3 wonderful kids. You're going to meet my last kid, my third kid today, who is my yoga partner. And then, so I try to practice all these. I not try. I practice them diligently every day for the past 8 years since I started, and I'm enjoying the process, and I'm passionate about this. And this is what I wanted to share with all the mothers today on this special day. And include your family members in this journey and protect your family from whatever that is going to come in the future. So that is the beauty of wholesome yoga. And in the end of my 1 hour session, I do a group guided meditation process where I talk about health based talks. Say, for example, what are the foods that promote your brain health? Or how do we connect with the spiritual self using meditation? Or what is the connection between anger and health? And or what are the steps to use forgiveness, and how can that affect your health? So things like that. So every meditation is very unique and health based and focused on getting your health on track, because that is the number one priority right now in all of our minds, not just in USA but all over the world. So what better way to start this Mother's Day than by incorporating wholesome yoga? And now I will just ask Irving to see if there are any burning questions before I move on to the next session. Irving, is there anything else that people want to know? Yeah, so maybe she missed the starting part of it. So the Sneha, there are 4 types of health: the physical health, the mental health, the emotional health, and lastly, the spiritual health. See, I know when we talk about health, all of us focus only on the physical health. I think that is that is the gym mentality. You want to pump up your biceps. But trust me, a lot of those people, when they have mental breakdown, they really don't know what to do. So that's why the depression is on the high, the drug addiction is on the high, all those alcohol abuse is on the high. So in order to conquer all the 4 aspects of health, that is why I adopted this technique called wholesome medicine. So, you can understand all the 4 aspects of your health if you practice this kind of yoga. And you can, Irving can connect you to my email, to my website. I conduct classes in America online as well as for Indian audience online. and very passionate about this. In fact, when I decided to start doing a wholesome medicine 2 years ago, I quit my a well trained and a well earned job. So at that point, it sounded a lot of the people around me were confused. But today, when they see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it and why I'm so passionate about it, so they come back and tell me, "Wow, this class has really changed my life." And I can share with you those testimonials. So this is the whole concept that I wanted to talk about this. So I don't know if it addresses, if Sneha understood this. Before we go to the next question, I want to tell you how one of the biggest flaw in that I noticed as working as an internal medicine doctor for the past 15 years or so is that um, all the patients who come in, right, whether it's a doctor or nurse or anybody who's working in the hospital, they deserve a paycheck. And it's, I know the modern medicine is driven by money and insurance and all things. So we can't say you have to work for charity. I understand that part of it. But what I'm saying, what the modern medicine failed is that for every 10 or 20 patients that they bill, they have to be able to prevent the future, at least future illnesses. So what I'm saying is they had to allot a certain amount of money for the community medicine, for teaching how to prevent illnesses, to help them understand about diet and lifestyle choices, for teaching them the basics about what is healthy and what is unhealthy. So that part, is that connecting link was missing. And that is where I thought I can make a difference. Like, say, for example, to talk about diet, right? So I get a lot of questions about diet. What is the healthy diet? And there are so many websites you can read up, nutritionists and dietitians. So the sad part is that what most of the Americans today are following is a sad diet, which is standard American diet. And this is not the terminology produced by me. This is the terminology used by a very popular neurologist in New York who wrote a book called XX Brain. She talked about, it's about, you can read up on that book, is amazing. You can, if anybody has interest. So here she talks about the sad diet, and this is the reason for the worsening of the American health. And she blames a lot of it on the processed food, which is widely used in America. So we can talk a lot about this in future sessions if needed. But what is processed food? Even the food, any food that is changed or altered from its natural composition is a processed food. So, you might think, most of us think it's the packaged chips. Oh, I don't eat packaged chips. Or it's the box of donuts. I don't need donuts. But even basic things like your milk, that is not directly coming from the source. It is processed. Your jellies, your peanut butter, your bread, even things like that. It is so a lot of us and a lot of people I know who are health conscious have started baking by themselves. They have started growing animals and plants, growing plants in the garden. And another big study that was done by the same neurologist was to focus on plant-based diet. So her name is Lisa Mosconi, and the book is XX Brain, and XX standing for the female brain. So she's a female neurologist, and she writes about the brain health. So I just wanted to share that concept here, saying it is not just from me, but this kind of health, the wholesome health, plant-based health, Using unprocessed, clean, hygienic food is what needs to be taught to the people. And this is what is missing. This link is missing. It's very sad. It is not being taught in the hospitals. Even so many of my colleagues, doctors, nurses, I don't want to blame them, but they're not being taught about that in their medical schools, in their nursing schools. So I learned a lot of this from self-learning and by learning yoga from the gurus in India and by reading a lot of books. So, Irving, any other question? So I just wanted to introduce a little bit about diet here. Is there anything else that right, that was the one that I was just discussing here. So when I was seeing this lack of connection, it's all the modern medicine was focused more on financial gains. So when I was like, say for example, as a physician, when I was practicing, I had to see 20 to 25 patients a day to make a certain amount of salary. And this includes my overhead, office overhead pay, my nursing, to pay my nursing staff, to pay my malpractice, and then whatever, and for the office rent, the lighting charges, whatever, all the mundane things. So when I see 25 patients in a day, so I'm allotted only 10 to 12 to 15 minutes per patient. And it was impossible for me to focus on all the four aspects of the health. And invariably, even when I had the knowledge to talk about it, I could not talk about this to each and every patient because it would take half an hour, 1 hour, sometimes more, and I was referring them to a specialist. So my patients were going to different a set of doctors, and it had become, like I said, like a compartment medicine, and I felt I was not doing the job of a doctor. I felt I was doing a job of a salesperson. So that's when I decided I'm going to change the system, not by changing others, but by changing myself, because I can't change the whole medical system that's here, but I can change the way I practice medicine. So that is how this I led to this wholesome medicine, where I focus on prevention, and prevention meaning understanding of your body and health as one entity. Because if you have diabetes, it can affect your eyes. Yes, I can send them to the eye doctor, but I have to get the diabetes under control first, right? If I have heart problems, that can affect my mental stress. If I have Parkinson's disease, I can have dementia. So each system is attached with all the multiple systems in my body, and I cannot focus on one system and send the patient to another doctor and say, you take care of this system. Then I send to another doctor and say, you take care of the heart, you take care of the lungs. So that was where I was highly dissatisfied, and that there was a period of struggle that was going on within myself, and this led to the beautiful concept of wholesome medicine. And I have a lot of students, hundreds of students right now who are being benefited from this, and I feel very satisfied about practicing this kind of medicine. So thanks, Shika, for asking that question. Anything else? Yeah, so yoga. So the kind of yoga that I teach, so I know the yoga, like I said, is a benefit for both mind and body. But beyond that, there are some aspects that I acquired after certain months and years of practice. And even though it's difficult for some of you, if you're beginners, it's difficult to understand and grasp what I'm telling right now. But here are the 7 things that I believe you can achieve from learning wholesome yoga and meditation. Number one is to raise the level of consciousness. So, when you talk about consciousness, you then talk about the chakras, the 7 chakras, and as we go in the higher chakras, our consciousness gets more elevated, and I can explain that better in the classes. Number two, it allows expansion of chakras and helps internal healing. So, for example, every chakra is associated with certain kinds of illnesses, and when that particular chakra is blocked, then you may not be able to come out of it. Like, for example, if you're blocked at the Muladhara chakras, then you're too focused on the basic needs for food, for sex, and things like that. So in order to come out of that, you need to unblock yourself, and then you will be able to see life beyond that. So that's step number two. Then the third one is focused on prevention of chronic illnesses and to keep your pills to minimum. Because from what I have studied for more than 15, 20 years, all the pills that we use in modern medicine, they can be used only for short term. If you are using it for weeks or months, you are going to face those repercussions later on, whether it's your cholesterol pill, whether it's your acidity pill, whether it's your heart pill. They all have their repercussions, and you are going to face those side effects. So the goal is to minimize the pills to zero and prevent chronic illness. Number four, like I said before, to overall development of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development. Number five, to gain control over your life. So, I get a lot of patients that come for counseling. I like to share a recent case where this person was from a very well-to-do family, and he was taking care of his father's business. I don't want to mention the name, but he had a wife, a kid. He runs a marathon every year, physically very, very fit. And the reason he came for counseling is that he could not derive at a purpose for his life. He could not derive at an answer to his life. So you see I see a lot of these kind of patients, and yoga and meditation can be the only way to find it, because I cannot tell the purpose of your life. You have to figure it out. And how do you figure it out? When you learn yoga and meditation in the right way and focus on them and practice them like a sadhana. What is sadhana? Sadhana is a practice that we do every day, like brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, eating your lunch and dinner, or sleeping. So yoga has to be a sadhana, a daily practice, and that's when you will start seeing these benefits automatically. So that's number five. Number six is to discover the purpose of your life. So that's the most important thing, even because all of us are born here and we die, and whether we die from COVID, whether we die from some illness, or whether we die just by aging, death is for sure. It's certain. But if we learn to live with a purpose, it makes our life more fruitful and more energetic and more passionate. And the last one is to establish a connection with your Ishta Devata, what we call in Sanskrit, is nothing but your spiritual self. So when you have a connection with your Ishta Devata, and it can be anybody, your guru, the priest at the church, or the God, the Lord Buddha. And when you establish a connection with them, then you always have somebody to fall back. You always have somebody to talk to. You will have somebody watching your back. So that's the connection that yoga helps in forming. So let's recap all the 7 benefits that I mentioned. 1, to raise the level of your consciousness. 2, to allow expansion of your chakras and allow internal healing. 3, to require minimum or 0 pills and prevent chronic illnesses. Number 4, to improve overall development, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development, to gain control over your life, to find a purpose in your life. And last one, to establish a connection with your Ishta Devata or spiritual self. So anything else, Irving? So can we get to the basic asanas now? Yeah. And we will get to the questions after the asanas. So I will quickly show some simple asanas. The ground rules for yoga before we go is always do yoga on an empty stomach. So because that way you don't, because you're doing upside downs, you're lifting your hands and legs, don't want to don't want to reflux the acid. So you can avoid those things. It's the best benefits can be derived when you're on an empty stomach for at least 4 to 5 hours. So ideally, I do it 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the evening. Sunrise, sunset. That is the ideal time. Avoid liquids. Drinking liquids half an hour before the yoga session, because sometimes we do bladder compression exercises and pressing of the belly, so that can make you want to go to the toilet, so we want to avoid that. And so those are the basic things. And then of course we need a yoga mat. So I'm going to introduce my little daughter. She's my 3rd child. She's 8 years old. Come on. And her name is Sakshi. She's my yoga partner. And yeah. So we are going to do the Surya Namaskars, and then we are going to do some simple poses. And then we will end with a complex pose called floating pose. And this is just a brief introduction for all of you. Again, yoga cannot be limited to a few asanas or poses. And all my classes, I try to use varied amount and I don't repeat them, so that there are so many variations of each of this. And I always start with Surya Namaskar. That is like the foundation, the ABCD of the yoga. So that is the Surya Namaskar. And always with a prayer. Let's start with the prayer. So we're going to do Maha Mrityunjaya mantra, and then we will start the Surya Namaskar. Baby. Yeah. In Chin Mudra. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamika bandhana mrityor mokshi yamamritate. Just a quick explanation of Mahamrityunjaya mantra. It's used particularly to ward off illnesses. And recently there was Mahamrityunjaya mantra that was chanted for 24 hours to ward off COVID. It's believed to help in preventing illnesses. So now let's start with Surya Namaskar. So she's going to do from this side. Baby, stand up. Section. We're going to do the 12-step Surya Namaskar, and we are going to do it alternate sides. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Once. 1, 2, look up. And all of you, please join me. This doesn't require that much of training. 3, come down. So both my hands are besides my 2 feet. 4, right leg at the back. Look in the front. My right knee is on the mat. My right knee is touching the mat. 5, Both feet at the back, plank pose. Make sure the plank is in a body is in a straight line like a plank. Don't hold your breath. Continue breathing. Knees down, chin down. Rise up, cobra pose. Mountain pose. So when I do the mountain pose, I'm looking at my inner thighs. Right leg to the front. Left knee is touching the mat. Both legs together. And if you're not able to, you're shaking, and when you're not able to focus, always look at something that is right in front of you. And don't let your focus off. Come down. So this helps in children who are not able to focus on their learning disabilities, ADHDs, things like that. So these kind of asanas are very useful for young kids. So if you start these practices from young age, they'll be very good with focusing on their work and finishing their reaching their target. Now we're going to do the opposite side, tree pose. Good job. Now figure 4. It's a variation of the tree pose, like this. Slowly focus on one object right in front of you. It's okay if you are not able to stand straight, that's fine. You're going to learn it. Now the other side. If your body is swaying to one side or the other, that's okay. Okay. Now the triangle pose. Wide legs. Come back. Wide legs. And then I'm bending. You bend to the right way. That's triangle pose. Now the opposite side. Now the warrior pose. Do you want to do the other side? Mm-hmm. So how the warrior pose is, I start with a triangle and then I turn my left foot like this. You see how my feet is? And I look towards the left side. And then up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Now we're going to show you a slightly tough asana, but it comes with practice. And I'm going to use the blocks for this. It's called the floating pose. And of course, my daughter does it with much ease. So that's the floating pose. And I'm using the blocks for this. Now I'm going to show you some other props. You can also, I'm also going to use this elastic band. So this helps in shaping your thighs and strengthening. So when you wear these bands, Make sure they're wide enough. Okay. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. So those are the ways you can use this. And then we can add other props like chairs and weights. I'll just show you one example of everything. So this is the chair I use for my chair asana. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So those are some of the ways you can use your chairs. Like this, stretching. There are so many asanas where you can use your chairs and all that. And I will be doing that in more detailed version in my classes. And now for the weights. So we can use the weights like this. And this is also a yogasana where I can combine the weights. And I always start with very less weights, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, not more than that. These are very good strengthening asanas for your belly, for your hips. Want to do the meditation, maybe? Come. And finally, we do, after doing this at a stretch for 40-45 minutes, we end the class with meditation. So for the meditation, sit in your comfortable pose. Hold the chin mudra. And focus on the center of your body, because all the energies and chakras are on the center of the body. So when you focus on that, inhale and exhale. I always use the word Om. Again, the Om is a very powerful phenomena. It is not connected to any particular religion. The word Om starts with the nasal passages and goes down to the lungs. That is how it expands your body and the lungs. Most importantly, it expands the vital capacity of your lungs. Let's start. Om. 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 Open your eyes. So today I have just shown you a condensed version of my class. Normally it takes about an hour for me to finish the 7-step process. But today I ran through the process starting with prayers, Surya Namaskar and asanas, the complex, the simple ones. And then also I want to show you some amount of face yoga. For those of you who want to prevent wrinkles to the face and want to have younger looking skin and avoid going to the plastic surgery, I know a lot of you are nowadays we have restrictions. So this is how you can finish. There is the nasolabial crease, or this is very commonly first sign of aging when you see there is a line across from the nose to the corner of the nose to the corner of the mouth. So we can prevent that very easily by using face yoga. So the technique that I use for to prevent that is the puffing method. So watch what I do. So I go around puffing around my lips. So that way, all the muscles here are contracted, and the blood supply to those organs increase, and you can feel that the skin looks more brighter, and you don't have to use Botox or skin creams to hide the wrinkles. So this is how it's done. So like this, we have about 20 or 30 different methods for avoiding wrinkles on the forehead, to avoid the crow's feet, around the eyes, to avoid dark circles, avoid wrinkles in the neck, and so many different asanas, and to make your skin look brighter, younger, and firmer. At the same time, softer. So, and a lot of other tips. So that's what I wanted to show you as a sample. Now I'll welcome questions, Irving. No, I didn't hear the question. Sorry. Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I went over the time. Okay. So thanks again for giving me on Hola Doctor. Okay. Share your comments and feedback. Bye bye. Hola. Bye. Namaskar.